Okay, so we've marked out the position for the mortise and the tenon. Now we need to mark out the actual tenon shape and the mortise shape. If you have a look on our plans, we'll notice that it's given to us that the thickness of the tenon is 6 millimeters. In actual fact, the thickness of the tenon is determined by the thickness of the size of the hole that we're going to put in there. And the only way to put a hole through here is with a chisel or a mortising machine. There's 3 different sizes of chisels available to us, and one of the chisel sizes you'll see here says 1/4 inch or fairly close to 6 millimeters. So this chisel is actually going to be used to create that hole in there. We'll show you that later on. If this is a 6 millimeter hole placed in here, that means that the tenon size, its width, also needs to be 6 millimeters. So first of all, we're going to mark out the position for the mortise with a 6 millimeter hole, and then we'll come over here for the tenon. To do that, we're going to take the mortise and tenon gauge once again and make the distance between the 2 pins here equal to exactly the distance between the 2 edges of our chisel. So loosen off the thumb screw, move this one in. This is a nice one, it's got a thread on it. And once it gets close, I'm going to place my chisel there, and I'm going to keep on adjusting. Oh, it's going to get close to bottoming out there. Oh yeah, just right. So the 2 pins there looks like to be exactly the top of the pins, exactly the width of the chisel, which is great. Notice it's bottomed out, which is interesting. So that 6 millimeters is set. Now the next thing we need to set or to work out is then how far is it from the stock to that first pin. A little bit of maths. If this is 42 millimeters wide, take away 6 equals 36. Divided by 2 equals 18, which means if we could go 18 millimeters from the stock to this pin, it should end up being 18 millimeters from this pin to the other side of my material. So grab your rule, and actually I like to work from this side of the rule. Where am I? Here we go. And I need to make the distance from the stock to the first pin a distance of 18 millimeters. Notice I'm holding it right on the end of the pin there. My eyesight was failing me. There we go. Just put a little bit of pressure on the thumb screw, go back and check again, and I'm pretty much on the money. I'm just on a fraction underneath. Oops, there we go. I'll just adjust that and then tighten him up. Okay, same rule as before. Stock of the mortise gauge needs to go against the face or the edge. So in this case it's going to go against the edge like so. Similar technique as before. Place the work into the vise. 2 pins like so, and then down and away. Then end for end the material. Remember, don't flip it over. 2 pins, and then down and away. Use your pencil, of course, to fill those lines in, and for end, it's good practice to get yourself into. And then if you want, you can put a few crosses there to represent that is the waste material. So that's marking out for the mortise, so we know that square amount of material, rectangular material is going to come out of there. Now we're going to mark out for the tenon. So let's just put these back together again. Normally you would do both sides before you did the tenon. So this has got to be now marked out to go directly into here as well. So what we don't want to change is the distance between these 2 pins. The only thing we want to change is the distance from the stock to the first pin. Now this material here, this hoop pine, is somewhere between 18 and 19 millimeters in thickness, and these 2 pins are 6 millimeters apart. So let's say it's 18 minus 6 gives us 12. Divide that by 2 gives us 6, which means we should have 6 millimeters from the stock to the first pin, from the pin to pin 6, and then from that pin to the end of the material should be another 6. So what we do now is what we did before. Move the stock up so it's 6 millimeters away this time. I think I've got it there. Yep, a little bit of tension on there, not too much. Go back and just double check. There it is, exactly 6 millimeters. Tighten that up. And then we do a little test here. Once again, stock must always against that face or that face edge. I'm just going to put 2 pinpricks in from this side into my timber. You can see those pinpricks there. Now, to guarantee that I've got this in the centre, I'm now going to flip the material side to side like so. And these 2 pinpricks should line up perfectly. Now, I don't know if you can see that there, but they're slightly out. Okay, probably about 0.5 millimetre out. So that means that we need to move the mortise gauge or the stock and that 2 pins slightly, a tiny fraction further apart. So 2 ways you can do that. You can tap the mortise gauge on the bench in this direction, or I can tap the mortise gauge on the bench this way to move the stock down there. So I need the stock to be, I think, a fraction, where was I? Further apart? Yes. I'll go back in there again, and I think this time I'll put 2 pinpricks a bit further away from each other, flip it, not end for end it, and yep, they're going back into the same hole, which is what I'm after. Okay, so now I know I've got this set up correctly. Now I can go and mark out the 1, 2, 3 sides of this tenon. So as before, remember that the stock goes against that face mark. Go across and away from you. Once again, if you struggle with this, you can put it in the vise to make it easier. Actually, we might do that. I should demonstrate that. Place the work in the vise. Here's a technique that some of you might want to do, where you actually place your fingers on this end and kind of pull this direction while you're moving it away like so. So what I'll show you there. 1, 2. Okay. Over the end, same thing. If you're struggling with one hand, you can actually put your fingers here and pull this as you're dragging down. Make sure that both pins make a mark. Pencil line. Oh, that was a shocker. There we go. There. And then rotate it back towards myself. Once again, put those 2 pins, or if I've got the face edge, I do. Put the pins there. Down, stops in those 2 holes. Okay, and like so. Where's the waist? Well, the waist this time is going to be on the outside, so we're going to be left with this thin tenon. Always put those marks there, so then you know which side of the line you're going to be cutting on. Not a bad idea too to put crosses out here, crosses out here, and then you've got the tenon marked out. Cut.